Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
I was 8 years old and in the hospital. My mother was caressing my shoulders. Familiar worry etched into her face. The white room we were in smelled like flowers dripped in rubbing alcohol. Next to her was the doctor, hunched towards me and taking his sweet time suturing the final stitch in my fingertip. The one I foolishly sliced open with a can lid. It hurt. Even with the shots they gave me, it still hurt. But behind the mild tug and sharp jolt of pain, my mind took notice of something moving in the room. A small gray shape floated by the doctor's head, an orb, like a snow globe. Aimlessly it wafted around the room, a helpless bubble caught in an unseen current. The inside of it fluttered with swarming sparks of light that made me think of fireflies. All at once, the sparks condensed in the orb's center, throbbing brightly with a pulse of light, and then continuing to swarm in their different directions. They did this at a steady pace. Thump, 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 just like the pulse in my finger. Mom? I finally asked. Do you see the fairies? Both she and the doctor exchanged puzzled looks. That was the first time I saw them. The second time was at my friend's house in the 7th grade. It was a school night, and we'd spent the evening shifting between scary movies and reaction videos. What had started for me as a slight ache in my temple soon escalated into a pounding migraine. My head was absolutely killing me, and my friend's dad let me sleep on his couch until the painkillers sedated me. In the quiet darkness of his stairway, I caught another orb in my peripheral vision. Its hazy, light-filled body drifted by the stairs. The same clustered specks, the same whisking, clueless movements. But one thing was different. This time, I could smell the strong, musty smell of an ashtray. When the painkillers kicked in, both the orbs and the smell were gone. It wouldn't be until later, that same month, that I found out my friend had lost his mother to lung cancer, caused by her favorite cigarettes. There's an eerie comfort in realizing that you aren't crazy, that the things you noticed all of your life weren't just figments being upchucked out of your imagination. Pain, that's the trigger point. It's the only way I can see these spirits, entities, or whatever you'd like to call them. I've always considered that a blessing. Without my endorphins working as an off switch, I'd see them everywhere, coasting all over the place, bumping into each other like jellyfish corpses. I've tried touching them, even going as far as trying to catch one in a jar. No dice. They're all incorporeal. Not all of them have their own distinct smell. Don't ask me what factors into that either. Sometimes, if I'm close enough to one, I can make out something reflecting off its transparent surface. A faint glimpse of lips, hair, maybe an eye staring back at me. I don't consider myself a medium or anything, high-browed like that, nor do I talk to anyone about these sorts of things. Attention isn't something I seek. To be honest, I'm just someone used to being out of the ordinary. I was born with cat eye syndrome in my left pupil, an anomaly that elongates its shape. Contrary to the name, my pupil looks more like a glob of ink sliding down my iris than the eye of a gray cat. Because it can't dilate on its own, I'm also extra sensitive to bright things. For the most part, I've gotten used to the double takes from people, the look one more time, then snap away approach. School thickened that tolerance. Kids called me Cyclops, and liked to spread rumors that I was infected with some horrific disease. I'm not sure if it's the reason I can see the things that I do, but one thing is certain, my left eye can spot them a lot more clearly in the dark. One Thursday evening, in the focal point of the summer, my uncle contacted my father and asked if I'd like to visit him for a few days. My uncle was looking for some last-minute assistance renovating a new home he was getting ready to move into and offered me a chance to make some extra money. Considering he'd cover the flight to Mississippi, I took him up on it. Being a fresh graduate out of high school, I was scrounging up whatever funds I could for college. The trip from Los Angeles to Delta, Mississippi was over 3 hours, and my Uncle Davin was already there at the parking spot. I wasn't just there for the job. Getting to see him was worth the flight all on its own. You never met a brighter spirit than his, always smiling and lending a helping hand, despite his own personal troubles. When he wasn't preaching at his local church, he was giving back to the community, somewhere, some way. "Catch the Southern Spirit," a dented sign said, welcoming us to Holmes County. Whatever that was, I hoped it wasn't contagious. We reached where I'd be staying for the next few days, a farmhouse that could easily fit a family of 5. Uncle Davin's backyard opened up to a large field with trees lining the borders. In the distance was the decaying corpse of an abandoned barn. The closest neighbors were miles away, between vast cotton fields and cypress swamps. If anyone ever asked my uncle why he chose the backwoods of Mississippi, he'd merely shrug and say, "We're all sick of the noise, I guess." Ironic, considering the obscene number of mockingbirds surrounding his property. You couldn't take 2 steps out of his front door before hearing them whistle at you from the tree line. Even at night, the lonely males sang. I'm sure my uncle did need help with the refurbishment, but more than likely, he just wanted some company. Aunt Rosie, his wife, had passed away due to heart conditions not long ago. They'd moved there together some time ago, to the land of flat glades and blues music, only for one of them to be left behind. I'd met Aunt Rosie a handful of times, and each visit she seemed nothing but kind and generous. It was unfortunate we'd been unable to make it to her funeral due to my father's poor planning with flight tickets and mixing up the dates. Despite that, Uncle Davin had no bad feelings towards his brother. By nightfall, I had finished packing in the guest room and waited the forlorn songs to put me to sleep. The next morning, we got up early, ate breakfast, and made our way to the job. We'd spent the whole afternoon cleaning rooms, tearing out carpet, and sanding down the hardwood floors. By the end of the day, we'd managed to finish a few rooms and get started on the bathroom tiles. I was exhausted. On a long stretch of road back to my uncle's house, he gave me a hefty pat on the shoulder. Thanks for the help, pal, and for coming in general. Yeah, no problem. I yawned. He averted his gaze back to the road and started to whistle the tune Home on the Range. That was her favorite song, you know, he said. The same one she'd always sing after church, of course. The little big bastards learned it, so I can still hear it in the driveway. A hard sigh blew out of his nose. It's hard being honest with yourself, isn't it? What do you mean? I asked. He tightened his lips. I mean, having to accept that things change, no matter what you do or could have done. It's good to embrace life, to accept the fact that it's both cruel and beautiful. I watched his neck slightly turn towards the pale orange tint of the sky. You can thank God that you still have eyes that can see the sunset, but it will never look as pretty as it used to. He then switched on the radio, and we drove the rest of the way in silence. That night, instead of sleeping, I was doodling some sketches on the writing desk in my room. I'm no artist, but it was a nice distraction from Uncle Davin's long, slow snores floating down the hallway. Something then grazed my nose, a lingering fragrance of floral and citrus perfume. I looked around the room and spotted movement at my door, a small dancing orb. Its center seemed to wink when it got my attention. The lamp on the desk flickered slightly. But I wasn't in pain. In fact, I felt fine. An icy worry crept down my neck. Was I in pain? Somewhere? And hadn't even noticed? The orb lazily approached me, and then hastened back to the doorway. I'd never seen one move like that before. Curious, I moved towards it and watched as it made its way towards the stairs and stopped, waiting. It wanted me to follow it. Another realization sparked inside me. This was Aunt Rosie's perfume. I trailed down the steps after the orb and watched as it sank through the door to the backyard. Grabbing my jacket and my shoes, I stepped into the cold of the outside. Sharp air brushed my cheeks. Cicadas made soughing sounds from the underbrush, underscoring the mockingbird's whistles. The orb was in the field, blinking like a distant lantern. When I finally reached it, the thing dropped and sank into a dead patch of grass. Then the bird started to scream. A whiteness swelled out of the ground. It lit up the surrounding turf, still inflating like an oversized balloon about to burst. I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the intense glow. It was huge. A large round tumor of vibrating, pulsing light. Thump, 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 thump. And inside the white plastered center of the haze were black twisting shapes. Vague shadowy objects forming a blot of ink on the canvas. "What do you see?" Rorschach asked. Hands, fingers, all forming out of the white milky haze. Claws at its insides. Tormented, wailing faces were pushing outwards against the orbs, stretching yet unyielding inner walls, their silhouette mouths stretched open in soundless agony. The brightness shot pain in my left pupil, but I didn't dare look away. I felt dizzy, like I needed to grab onto something, to clasp a little bit of reality back into my hands. But there was nothing, just me, the field, and the orb full of terrible, writhing things, a playground of pure hysteria. Then, out of the squirming void formed a woman's face, Aunt Rosie's face, her features as clear as day. Her eyes held the desperate look of someone helpless. Her skin was pasty and loose like melting wax. Her hair was tangled and clumped with dark clots of mud. I watched her colorless lips open and close, speaking, but no words reached me. My legs trembled and I staggered back. I felt like someone on stilts, about to snap their neck along the pavement. I was gonna faint. Before the dizziness took over, I craned my neck towards the house. The lamp in my room was flickering rapidly. Then, nothing. I'm not sure how long I was out, but when I came to, the orb and my aunt's face were gone. Needless to say, sleep was a non-existent thing that night. Every so often, I'd once more peer out the window, wondering if I'd see the glow in that field again. When morning came, it didn't take long for my uncle to notice how exhausted I was. "You alright, pal?" he asked, as I dozed off in the passenger seat. "Yeah, just didn't sleep much last night. I'm alright." I wasn't, not by a long shot. Part of me wanted to tell him the truth, that hours ago, his deceased wife had somehow made contact with me, that she looked distressed, like she needed help. But what would that do to him? He'd been through enough as it was. No, I need to ruminate on it some more. Another hard day of work, and we completed a good portion of the house. To celebrate, we went out to eat and watched some late night stand-up. 2.5 hours after that, I was sitting at the desk, still eyeing the field. I wasn't sure what to expect, or even how to digest the information I already had. Then, sure as hell, just as I started to feel that pinprick of ease, the small orb floated by. Its delicate light blinking at me, perfume wafted in my face. Still, there was no pain. I swallowed hard. "Aunt Rosie, is that you?" No response, just more drifting. I tried again. "If that's you, make a sound. Move to the hall. Give me a sign or something." As I said that, the lamp on my writing desk flickered. "Can you do that again?" I asked. The light spasmed once more. "I need to know if you need help." As though harnessed to my voice, the lamp started flickering its light again. It stopped and started again, repeating the same exact pattern twice more. Pulses that were short, long, and distinct. Without thinking, I grabbed a sheet of paper and started to write. It was a jumbled, seemingly random flicker to most, but to me, it was a signal. I should thank my time as a Boy Scout for that. We used to spout swear words to the neighboring troops with our flashlights. I scribbled a sequence the orbs was repeating. Help. So that was it? We were communicating. You need to tell me more, I said. Why do you need help? The lamp flashed again, steadily, adding to the pattern. Help us. I twisted my head towards the orb, which was now circling the room like an intoxicated spirit. She was calling to me, pleading for help. But it was not just Aunt Rosie. There were more of them. There was us. Before I even asked another question, the message shifted. Killed. I felt a sharp pain of anxiousness. Why that word? Why that awful, awful word? A cold, jagged word that punched into me like cold metal. My heart lurched painfully, as if pumping excess fluids from my chest, trying to save itself from drowning. I didn't want to ask the next question. I didn't want the answer. Who killed you? Husband. No. I crossed the word out, as though that held every ounce of power. It wasn't possible. My uncle was a saint, the most selfless man I knew. He cared for people. He gave sermons at church. He'd never hurt anyone, let alone the love of his life. My brain rejected the notion. It was wrong. It had to be. The lamp blinked out another sequence, pausing because the bulb was starting to go out. Just as the last spark of life shot out, I got the final message. Basement. When I checked back on the orb, it was also gone, fizzled. Gathering my thoughts, I quietly moved my way to the basement door. The stairs shuddered under me. It had to have been 4, maybe 5 in the morning. I didn't know and didn't care. Sleep was the last thing on my overloaded brain. The basement was cold and spacious, with concrete walls, gray cabinets, and workbench against a wall. Beyond that was just a small square window to the backyard. I paced the room, unsure of what I was even looking for. On the right side of the room was a door propped inches open. I pulled it open, and the rest of the way revealed a small closet, with a chair in the center. The chair had thick leather straps made for wrists and ankles. The legs were firmly nailed into the ground. It looked like something made for a hysterical patient in a psych ward. The wooden arms were perforated with deep grooves where fingernails had scraped into them. Surrounding the chair in the closet was a rough circle of salt, lined with rows of non-melted candles. I had to step back and remind myself to breathe. The thought of being strapped down in that small, vertical space gave me a choking, suffocating feeling. I went back to my bedroom, where sleep would never find its way back to me. Before I knew it, my uncle and I were making the final trip to get the remaining rooms refurbished. Throughout the day, there was an evident awkwardness between us. The chair was a constant overtone in my thoughts. I was thinking of 1,000 ways to bring it up to him. It felt like a dangerous question, like one I should save for after I was gone, one for over the phone. But even then, what would that do? During the drive back to his house, I couldn't hold it anymore. I had to say something. Uncle Davin? He tilted his head towards me. Sorry to ask this, but it's been eating at me for a while now. How did Aunt Rose die exactly? Something stirred in his eyes. A subtle flicker of surprise that quickly sunk back to the corner it was hiding in. Sorry? He coughed. I wasn't expecting a question like that. She had heart problems. Didn't I tell you? And your folks already? No, not me, I lied. You probably mentioned it to my parents, though. Ah, yeah, you're probably right. What has you so curious? He gave me a quizzical look. Just a chair in your basement? My thoughts pestered. Yes, just a chair with the leather straps and nailed legs. Who was that for? No reason, I shrugged. Just a bad dream I had last night. The conversation dwindled after that, and didn't speak again for the rest of the evening. I was sitting at the writing desk, chewing my nails down to ragged stumps. The bulb I had replaced had not blinked or fluttered. My flight was tomorrow, and I couldn't tell if I was dreading it or yearning for it. I rang my dad's phone, to no avail, and my mom's was going straight to her voicemail. Just wanted to talk to her, to hear anyone's voice in my head other than my own. There was a knock at the door. "Come in," I said. My uncle lightly pushed the door open, a glass of dark whiskey in his hand. "Hey, pal," he said. "It's your last night up here. Did you want to watch a movie with me?" "No, thanks. I'm pretty tired, actually." His face gave a faint, troubled look. "What's going on between us? I feel like you're upset." "No, I'm not. Sorry. I just have a lot on my mind right now." "You were in the basement, weren't you?" A lump of panic formed in my throat. "What?" He sighed heavily and stepped towards the bed, practically stumbling into a hunched seat. I realized then how drunk he already was. "That's why you asked," he muttered. "Because you were, worried?" Wasn't sure what to say. This wasn't Uncle Davin, sitting across from me, but a cheap carbon copy of him that drank itself silly and hid secrets from people. "I'll share something with you," he said dryly. "Something I haven't shared with the rest of the family, to be, honest. I've been rather self-conscious about it." His eyes wilted towards the whiskey between his hand. "I used to be an exorcist. You know what that is, right?" I nodded my head. "Good boy. I figured you would." He chuckled nervously. "I understand if subjects like that are fairy dust to you, but if you've seen what I have, you'd get it. Women molesting their own bodies, screaming at me with voices that didn't belong to them, eyes rolling in the back of their sockets, foam spewing from their mouths. People came to me for help. Yeah, they came to me, and I helped them," he repeated sullenly. "I helped them all." "What does that have to do with Aunt Rosie?" He twirled the glass in his hand, spilling some liquor on the floor. "The house never liked me, hated me from the start. Something was wrong with it. Something was here first, in the basement. Rosie found it, and it got to her. Made her act strange." He choked out the end of the sentence, pausing to wipe the tears from his cheek. "She wanted to hurt me. She wanted to hurt herself. I had to do it. I had to get rid of her. And I did. But her heart..." His body lurched into his lap. It was already so weak. Her heart. She couldn't make it. I can't go back down there. I can't. That's why you've been helping me renovate the new house, because I can't be here anymore. It's too much for me." The rest of the words were drained into incoherent sobs. I'm sorry, pal," he wept. I'm sorry." I helped him off the bed and led him down the hall to his room. His breath reeked of disgusting alcohol. "Tried. Couldn't get rid of it," he muttered as I got him to bed. "Had to bury it." The door clicked shut behind me. I couldn't take it anymore. It was too much to break down. My legs brought me to the garage. Enough was enough. My uncertainty, every last bit of it, had graduated into searing clarity. Find the truth. I trudged through the backyard, shovel in hand. The cold air couldn't reach me. The mockingbirds were whistling and singing from the tree line. I marched to the dead patch of grass in the field and started digging. The birds shrilled in a choir of high-pitched whistles. "Shut up!" I barked at them, pushing the round, pointed blade deeper into the earth. Then I heard a subtle scrape of it hitting something. I dropped to my knees and raked the wet dirt aside. It looked like a wine box, absolutely caked in red, waxy substance. Things clotted around inside of it. This was it, the truth. I cracked open the seal and peered within. There were old pennies, a lock of black-brown hair, bound with a cord, a single candle holder, then light. A wave of light erupted out of the box. It washed over my wrists, slipping inside my sleeve like burning ice. It crawled up my arms, gushing out of the box like blood from an artery. The light swirled and expanded, covering over me in a roundish shape of a large spear. My body went numb. The world melted into vague, swirling images. I could still hear the crying of the mockingbirds covering together into a pierced, rhythmless pitch. Louder, louder. It slid in my ears, blotting out all senses and understanding, drowning me inside out. I couldn't breathe anymore. Couldn't taste the cold air. My feet no longer felt ground under me. I was falling down a deep, airless shaft. No light, just endless, hungry darkness. The muscles in my arm tensed painfully. A voice that wasn't mine started to scream. When I came back, I was standing in a dark room. The screaming had stopped. My heart pounding my ribs like a caged animal. I was sticky with sweat. Whatever I was holding suddenly clattered onto the floor. A kitchen knife? Wet with blood. Dread swallowed my thoughts. My eyes traced the room, my uncle's room, and settled on the bed, where a bundle sat stationary beneath the covers. A body. The sheets were doused in red and torn greatly with newly opened slits. My trembling hands were coated in it. Help! My ruptured mind managed to pull together. We need to get help. I twisted towards the door and stopped. A slew of blood smeared over the wall in a crude, wet letters read, "Thank you." I called the police, but my uncle was long dead before they arrived. I was taken in and arrested since I was the only one in the house. The only one with the murder weapon. My prints were all over the crime scene. I'll be going to court for manslaughter charges pretty soon. According to my appointed lawyer, our best bet in the system is an insanity plea. Whatever had been inside that box had taken my body for a ride and stabbed Uncle Davin 20 times. I'll never forgive myself for letting that happen. Thank you, it told me, after I let it out. I'm sorry, Uncle Davin. I'm so sorry for what I've done to you, and whatever hell I've released into the world. Forgive me, please. Forgive me. I want to give a special thank you to the author of tonight's story, Michael Paige. The story was titled Cry of the Mockingbird. If you enjoyed this, please check out more of his works. The links will be in the description below. He's a fantastic author and deserves a lot of recognition. Again, thank you very much, and I really do hope to have more of your works on this channel. Also, I have merch. If you'd like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the links to my merch store will be in the description below. As always, I want to say a special thank you to my lovely Patreons. 242 Reads, Pam, Seraphine the Midnight Bard, Creepy Clown Girl, Mia Mina, Philia Noctis, Hair-Raising Narratives, and Spooky Boo's Scary Story Time. If you'd like to join these lovely travelers by the light of my fire, you can do so by becoming a Patreon as well. The support is always appreciated, but never expected. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that bell if you're new, as it will really help push this video out into the algorithm and help the channel grow.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.